Hey there, Scary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. Matt Norlander is here with me. He's at home in Connecticut. I'm in a hotel in New York City, in town doing studio work for CBS Sports Network. If you're watching on YouTube, please smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the YouTube channel, just go ahead and knock that out while you're here. Let's get into it. So the story of Tuesday night, undeniably, was Kentucky, and not for good reasons. 3 days after getting blasted by 26 points at Alabama, the Wildcats hosted a South Carolina team that was ranked 263rd in the net and coming off of a 43-point loss at Tennessee. So this was a get-right game, if there ever was one, but it quickly turned into a get-more-wrong game for the Wildcats. Final score was South Carolina 71, Kentucky 68 in the same month in which Devin Downey got 30 points and led South Carolina to an upset of Kentucky. 13 years ago, Meechie Johnson got 26 points and led South Carolina to an upset of Kentucky inside Rupp Arena. So shouts to Devin Downey, shouts to Meechie Johnson. Dead-leg Kentucky just lost at home as a 20-point favorite to a first-year coach with a team that had previously lost to East Carolina and George Washington. So now the Wildcats are 10-6 overall, 1-3 in the SEC, still 0 quad 1 wins. Now they got a quad 4 loss. More quad 4 losses than quad 1 wins. That ain't good. If the NCAA tournament started today, Kentucky would not be in it, despite starting the season ranked first at KenPom. A fan was holding a sign inside Rupp Arena on Tuesday night that read, "Please go to Texas." That was directed to John Calipari. Is this clearly the low point for Cal at UK?
Oh, yeah. It is. We have to start on Kentucky and Cal. Michigan State fans, we're getting to you. I didn't realize how much I'd apparently promised this on the Sunday show, GP, but I had a solid contingent of Michigan State fans being, you said, no. Kentucky's bigger news. We will get to Sparty. You got a good team. We're going to get to you. But this is the biggest thing because it is. This is the lowest point. I think it's the lowest point for Cal as a coach, period. Even going when he was in the NBA, because, you had the loss to Evansville as the number 1 ranked team early in the season. That was an embarrassing loss, certainly a historic loss. You had the 9-16 COVID year. Sure. Extremely dispiriting, straight up bizarre to see a Kentucky team be that bad. Yes, that team was worse than this team, but it really sets the table for this season, which was accelerated in terms of anxiety after losing to 15th seeded St. Peter's last March. When you consider the temperature in that area, going into what should have been a gimme home game and then losing it, actually like shaving the margin down to 3 points. You may or may not realize this, but going into Tuesday night, the South Carolina, there were 10, 20, 31 games in Division I basketball on Tuesday night. And according to KenPom, the least exciting thrill score, which just tries to project how good the game will be, how competitive it will be, how the teams are involved, and how likely it is to be a close game, right? There are 31 games going into Tuesday. The bottom on that list was Kentucky hosting South Carolina because, 1, South Carolina's not a good team, and 2, in theory, Kentucky should win relatively comfortably. It was, 16, 17, 18-point favorite, depending on where you got that line or what the predictive metrics showed going in. And instead, Kentucky loses by 3 and trails the entire game, was down big early and couldn't get it together. And we have hit a new low. Oh, by the way, Kentucky has to turn around and play at Tennessee on Saturday.
That'll be fun.
By far defensively in college basketball.
I'm sure that'll be fun.
So it has reached a point of complete, to borrow the word from our colleague John Ross, it's brutality right now. It really is. And for the fan, and someone locally caught up with the reporter, I don't have that tweet up in front of me. Apologies for that. But apparently they went up to this fan and said, we need you to put the sign down, to which I guess he initially did. But then someone else came over again and said, we're actually going to take the sign. He said, no, I'm going to leave before you take the sign. Wouldn't let him take the sign. And then they tried to take it again, I guess, as he was leaving on his own accord. And he's like, you're not getting my damn sign. And it's not, again, to the Georgetown point. when Kentucky's being compared to Georgetown this way and you're this thin-skinned, it's an absolutely atrocious look. If there's nothing offensive about a sign, if it's simply expressing a valid opinion in 2, 3, or 4 words, and there's truly nothing vulgar or discriminatory or inappropriate about the sign, as long as you're not blocking the view of anyone behind you, which, by the way, it didn't appear he was, because Rupp Arena, by the way, I looked at, I'm going to guess 40% capacity. I mean, how damning is this overall, man? It's just a horrendous night. Someone interrupted Calipari's post-game radio situation, and how that goes. If you saw the video on social media, he hops on local radio for 5-10 minutes, and he's doing it with Tom Leach, the local radio guy there. But there are fans. He's doing it in front of the stands, so they hear him live as he's also talking to people leaving the arena in their cars around the area and all that stuff. And someone basically interrupted him mid-sentence and said, you gotta tamper down expectations. You need to stop doing this. And Cal handled it well and said, I'm not going to do that. But he completely understands. But he's also got to stop deflecting here. And I know he's doing it to protect his players, but he also said in the post-game presser where he's like, get mad at me, don't get mad at the players. They're mostly mad at you, Cal.
Yeah. They're one step ahead of you.
But they're really pissed off at you. Like, they're really pissed off. In fact, I think Nada's got a poll up right now, if you're watching, about if you believe Kentucky and Calipari should just split this year. I'll repeat it one more time in case you're checking in on this pod and didn't catch Sundays or haven't catch a few recent ones. Just as a reminder, what complicates this isn't just the lifetime contract, obviously, GP, but it is having not just the number 1 recruiting class, but there's a belief that the class coming in next year, headlined by DJ Wagner, could amount to a top 3 or 4 class from a talent perspective that Calipari's ever had. So with that will come, obviously, great expectations, but conceivably maybe a top 10 preseason ranking. I'm going to tell you right now, GP, if Cal is still there, I'm going to fight against that. No matter how good they are, maybe they can get there. I just don't know if he deserves the benefit of the doubt there. So yes, I'm not thrilled about starting another podcast talking about Kentucky, but this is a story. This is a major story. Kentucky has gone from preseason number 1 at Ken Pom, preseason top 5 team, unranked, doesn't have a tournament resume. I said it on HQ this morning. This team would not be in the field, doesn't deserve to be in the field. My last thing for you is this. Since December 17th, at barttorvik.com, go ahead and adjust, take out the preseason bias. 184th best team in college basketball in the past 3+ weeks. 184 for Kentucky. Can't have it. And now they got to go play on the road against the best defensive team in the country at Tennessee on Saturday. Doesn't look good.
It does not. We should point out Jacob Toppin did not play. Shoulder issue. Cason Wallace only played 8 minutes. John said after the game that he was dealing with back spasms, which, by the way, ain't great because they expanded on that. And I believe Kentucky Sports Radio reported that, Cason Wallace has been dealing with back spasms forever and actually sits with a brace on his back on the bench. Like if you're an NBA general manager, you don't want to hear that. Nope. So that's not great. Either way, UK was without 2 of its top 4 scorers for most of the game. That matters. But still, you can't lose as a 20-point favorite at home to a team ranked 263rd in the net. South Carolina entered last night's game 251st in adjusted offensive efficiency, according to Ken Pom, and then shot nearly 50% from the field against Kentucky. They're 11 of 20 from 3. That's 55%. So it was just an abysmal performance, especially on the defensive end. And then, in the final minute, you get Severe Wheeler just throwing the ball to the wrong team. You can't do that. And then afterward, you hear the quotes coming from the locker room. Oscar Tshiebwe reportedly said he told Cal to put in walk-ons if the walk-ons will fight.
Man.
So that suggests there's some. And Cal said, in his post game, that we're just not in sync. So what it suggests to me is they got basketball problems, but they got locker room problems too, chemistry problems on some level. These guys are not on the same page, not pulling in the same direction. And when you hear the reigning National Player of the Year say that he told his coach, surround me with walk-ons if they'll fight with me, that's not something that gets fixed overnight. And it's especially not something that gets fixed when you're headed to Thompson Bowling Arena. You might be shorthanded, abysmal, and about to play one of the best teams in the country on the road in a packed arena, and the arguably, according to some numbers, the best defensive team in the country. So this is probably going to get worse before it gets better. And at this point, I'm not certain it's going to get better. Yesterday, coincidentally, the urging of Marcus Nelson, we did a dribble handoff where we were asked, like, how's the rest of this Kentucky season going to play out?
Didn't really want you to bring this one up, Parrish, but
yeah, I wish
it's age there.
This is the problem with doing the dribble handoff on Tuesdays. We got to do them on Wednesdays. We should have had this game behind us before we started trying to do a dribble handoff.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Because we all, we all said, yeah, we still think Kentucky's going to get to the NCAA tournament. And that was, you just sort of assume you're going to get a quad 4 win here as opposed to a quad 4 loss. Now, I don't think I would bet against Kentucky now. I really do think last night changed it. Like, if we all had to do that again, would any of us project Kentucky to make the NCAA tournament? I wouldn't.
I had them as a 9 seed 24 hours ago. If you made me do it again, oh my God. I mean, we're basically answering the question here. Send them to Dayton. They still got the reigning national player there, and Sheboy played well. The weird thing is Kentucky actually played well offensively last night. Parrish, like it was just the defense was brutal, just brutal. I mean, Michi Johnson was outrageous, and South Carolina made 11 3-pointers, went 11 of 20 from beyond the arc. It outscored Kentucky 33-9 in 3-point shooting. So despite the fact that Kentucky didn't shoot for threes well, it actually did play well for the most part. So I'd have him in Dayton. You'd have him out. Would you agree with the poll? Nana's texting me live here. He's saying right now 62% of our viewers watching the live stream are saying that Kentucky and Calipari should split at the end of the season, regardless of the fact that he's got the number 1 recruiting class coming in. Let's say that your prediction is right now. Kentucky doesn't make the NCAA tournament. Would you agree with the majority of our live viewers that they should split?
Should split, sure. Will split. I don't know how practical that is. You ever known a couple, like a man and a woman, or a man or man, woman, doesn't matter, married, and they're just sort of stuck together? Like, they don't want to be together anymore. They don't really and they're not enjoying each other anymore. But for oftentimes financial reasons, they're just kind of stuck. They're ready to move on, but neither wants to give up the house or whatever else. Nobody wants to not live with the kids full time. So they just stay in this bad and miserable thing because there's no great way to get out of it. That's John Calipari in Kentucky right now. Kentucky is over John Calipari, and I can't imagine John Calipari is too thrilled about, being yelled at and accosted and criticized to this degree. Like, John's never been good at taking criticism. Just trust me when I tell you, dating back for as long as I've known him, he's never been good about criticism. You could say 40 positive things about him, but if you come back with one negative, that the one negative is the one thing that he remembers. And now this entire state that used to adore him not too long ago, like they I don't know what the right word is, but they're frustrated and over it. His words don't matter the way they used to matter. Obviously, the product on the court is dreadful. As I pointed out on, I believe, Sunday's podcast, Tubby Smith coached at Kentucky for 10 years, never missed the NCAA tournament, and still got ran out of town to Minnesota. It got so ugly, he was like, yeah, just give me the Minnesota job. I can't do this anymore. John Calipari is on the verge of maybe missing the NCAA tournament for the second time in a 3-year span, and for the third time in 14 years. So the temperature is hot right now. And if the question is, how do you resolve it? I don't know that there's a great answer. Like, there are a lot of things you could explore. Like, could you pay him to take another job? My understanding is after the season, Kentucky still, according to the contract, owes him in excess of $40 million. Could you tell him, go get the best job you can get and we'll make you whole? So if you can go get a job making $4 million a year, we'll pay you $5 million a year over the life of the go get a $20 million contract from somebody and we'll give you $22 million to go away. Or go get a $30 million contract from somebody and we'll give you $10 million to go away. Could you pay him to take another job? That has happened before, by the way. Jamie Dixon had his buyout lowered at Pitt so he could take the TCU job. It's idiotic, but it happened. Memphis paid Josh Pastner to take the Georgia Tech job. And so you can get creative like that. At this point, I think he would take the Texas job if offered. I'm not sure Texas would offer the job to him at this point. Although if I were Cal or his people, I would be telling the folks in Austin, hey, I've got the #1 recruiting class in the country with 4 top 10 prospects. I'll bring them. Hire me and I'll bring you the best recruiting class in the country. He could do that. So those are some possibilities, I guess. But I think the most likely scenario, and maybe even we'll look back a year from now and say the best scenario, the best thing that could have happened, is you pay, instead of paying John Calipari tens of millions of dollars to go away, pay Oscar Tshiebwe $3 million to come back, and then surround him with these freshman studs and hope that it just clicks. It's like that. It's not like John Calipari's never won before with great prospects. So I think that is probably the most likely scenario, that you just try to let him see if he can coach his way out of this. And it'll be ugly until he does. And if he doesn't, it'll get uglier. But at this point, I don't see a realistic other possibility. Like if St. John's open, would he be willing to take the St. John's job? Go back to New York City? I don't like, would he be an option at Georgetown just to, parachute out? I don't know. But this thing is ugly right now, and there's no perfect way to make it pretty.
South Carolina winning at Rupp was marked just the 3rd time ever that program won at Kentucky, just to give you an idea of how rare that is. And then Kentucky had the 2nd longest win streak at home going in, 28. That got snapped. Gonzaga's just north of 70 right now. It's by far and away the best. So we await what comes down the pike here with Kentucky, but it is as bad as it has ever been, and it will be very intriguing to see how things develop. My guess is that he does not relinquish this. He will be coaching at Kentucky next season, even if this gets even worse. They don't make the tournament. There's more bad losses. Now, it'll get extremely volatile. Don't get me wrong, it will. But I think with everything he's got coming in and the amount that's owed on that buyout, I think he gives this one more year to really give it a go, because he's extremely competitive as well. And don't think that even if he can't figure it out at the moment, he's not going to just grit his teeth, dig in, and try and go against the world. Not to say that he'll be successful. My guess is he's sticking around, and a year from now, he'll still be on the bench in Lexington.
I agree with you. That's what I think the most likely scenario is. And you touched on something important there. John is certainly was on track to be like a legacy coach at Kentucky. The guy who retires, still lives in Lexington, shakes hands, shows up at the games, gets standing ovations, takes selfies with everybody. Like the way you see Roy walking around Carolina right now, John is in theory supposed to be that guy at Kentucky, because it can't be Rick Pitino, and it's just not going to be Tubby Smith, and obviously not Billy Gillispie. Like John Calipari is supposed to live out the rest of his life on some level doing that. And if you bounce now or get bounced now, that changes all of that. So I'm with you. I think the most likely scenario is do the best you can do this year. Whatever happens, happens. And then as soon as the season's over, wherever it is, you pivot to 2023-24 and do your best to get Oscar Tshiebwe back in school for another year, and then surround him with like real awesome, 5-star prospects, and hope that it clicks the way it used to. In the meantime, they got to go to Tennessee this weekend, where they will almost certainly be a double-digit underdog, which is just wild to think about. And it reminds me of one of my favorite sayings. I think I've mentioned this before.
Oh boy.
It's one of those simple things, but it
don't get involved in a land war in Asia.
There's that one. And then there's, you never want to lose at home to South Carolina in between games at Alabama and Tennessee, because that's how you end up with a 3-game losing streak. I think that's how the saying goes.
That old credo. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little wordy, I admit, but it's something people have been saying for years.
Give the people what they want. Let's get on to Sparty.
Michigan State won for the 7th straight time Tuesday night. It's a nice victory at Wisconsin. We're going to get into that next, but first, a word from our partners.
We need a pecking order inside, gentlemen, so we have control on the outside.
Mike, it's gonna be some payback.
I have an idea. It's gonna sting, but it will work.
I'm gonna trust you on this.
The inmates are running the asylum, and you're giving up the key.
This war is what I'm trying to stop. If I say I'm gonna do a thing, I think it's done.
So I mentioned on Sunday's podcast that we have probably spent less time talking about Michigan State this season than in any other season we've ever done this. I have a theory that I think explains why. The reason I think is because we tend to talk about big brands that are great or big brands that are disasters or ranked teams or surprisingly good teams or camel fighting. And Michigan State has been none of that for most of the season, been unranked since December 5th. So the Spartans haven't really been great enough to demand attention, but also not bad enough to demand attention. They're just sort of operating off the national radar. But it is worth noting that Michigan State won its 7th straight game Tuesday night, 69-65 at Wisconsin. So the Spartans are now 12-4 overall, 4-1 in the Big Ten, tied with Purdue atop the Big Ten standings. Deadleg, give me your evaluation of Michigan State through 16 games.
The fan base doesn't want Tom Izzo fired.
That's good. It's a good place to start.
It's a healthy place to start. Yeah, Michigan State has not lost since December 4th. It had a loss to Northwestern. At that point, it was 5-4. Kind of heading toward no man's land in terms of relevancy, but been able to turn it around here. And then the win at Wisconsin is what is going to potentially get Michigan State back into the rankings. Sparty has to play Friday at Illinois, get a win there to get to 13-4. MSU will be ranked when the polls refresh next week. We'll see if it can do that. It's also, when you look at its profile, not just in terms of NCAA tournament stuff, although that to an extent as well, but also the team itself, there's not a ton there. Like, it doesn't rank top 35 on either end of the floor. There's not a star. And I think this is what Izzo was expecting, to be honest. It has good players, but no one on this team is averaging north of 14 a night. It does have 4 scorers in double figures. Tyson Walker's at just shy of 14 a game. Same with Joey Hauser. And then AJ Hogard, who has been quite good, to be honest, as a lead guard for this team. He's at 6.5 assists per game, and then Malik Hall at 10.9. Those are guys in double figures. And against Wisconsin, to win the way that they were able to win, really good from the foul line, 16 of 17 from the foul line overall, shot well from 3-point range. Hauser went for 20. Hogard had another really good game distributing. They've got just a solid team, and Wisconsin did not have Tyler Wall. So if he's available in this game, maybe Sparty doesn't get it, but he wasn't. And so MSU did wind up getting done because Wisconsin was shorthanded. It was a very good competitive game. It just so happened that this was happening alongside a couple of other really good, interesting games there. So it got a little bit lost in the mix. But yeah, when we look up in the greater hierarchy of the Big Ten right now, Michigan State, maybe somewhat quietly. Again, it's Illinois, and then host Purdue, host Rutgers, at Indiana. It's there's a lot coming. There's probably going to be some losses that get added here. But Michigan State can be in that mix. If we're going to put Purdue on its own tier right now, which I think we should, I think that's entirely fair. Michigan State could be in that mix with Rutgers, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Illinois. Iowa's getting better. There's a lot to still be figured out with this league. And the conference actually ranks second overall in net in KenPom. So it is a good league, but the pieces are still jumbled. Like, if you were to ask us to tier out the conference at this point, I actually don't. Weird as it is, Parrish, January 11th, it's hard to do that other than to say Purdue is on its own tier at the top. Minnesota is clearly on its own tier at the bottom, maybe just above Minnesota. You could say I want to put Nebraska there. Illinois did walk into Pinnacle on Tuesday night. What else is new? But aside from that, even like a team like Northwestern's 3-1 in the league, 12-3 overall, and it could be in that second or third tier eventually. So the Big Ten is still providing a lot of mystery. I like that. I'm on record saying that plenty of times before. I like not really having a true sense of what a league is when we get to this time of year, because I want to see the games. I want to see how the teams respond. I want to see how things shake out. Michigan State could be anywhere from the second best team to, I think right now, the floor is probably the floor. I think the floor is probably 6 in this league for this team. I don't know if they'll have an alpha absolutely emerge, but Izzo's getting it done with a bunch of just quality players, and to no surprise, they're pretty damn good again, and finally riding their longest win streak in quite some time.
To your point about Purdue being on a tier by itself, Kim Palm currently projects the Boilermakers to win the league by 3 games. That's a lot for a league like this. So it does appear, at least from that perspective, Purdue is in a tier by itself. And after that, yeah, throw Michigan State and 3 or 4 other teams in there, and we'll see how it shakes out. But obviously, the Spartans are trending in the right direction. They've got it's funny to look at their big wins. It's Kentucky, Villanova, Michigan, Wisconsin. It's just like,
I know. I saw that.
bunch of big names, like nice programs that are not having great seasons. I know Wisconsin sort of was perfectly fine until Wall got sidelined, and ask Creighton how that goes when you lose a key player like that. So, but Oregon down relative to expectations, Michigan down relative to expectations, and then Villanova, by the way, just lost to DePaul.
Yeah, but shouts to DePaul. First time since 2008. So good on DePaul. Villanova, I said it on Sunday, GP. It's not going to the tournament, and it's going to be it is weird, like when you really look at a lot of the bigger brands, bigger schools, bigger programs, right? They're just having down years, or weirdly
North Carolina, Duke,
Kentucky, like a lot of these teams, and Nova's just not going to the tournament there. But in all seriousness, credit to DePaul, home win, got it out since 2008, my man. 2008, going that long without getting one, they finally peel it off. So I'm glad you brought that up, because they did. DePaul, we like to poke fun at DePaul in a loving way, but they deserve genuine shouts for getting the 18 years, man. 18 years.
18 years.
Yeah, well, I don't even
know if you're allowed to say that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. DePaul's win was I
think I just canceled myself.
You did.
I apologize. Let me go ahead and apologize. I want to go ahead and apologize. I didn't mean to quote that. It just, anytime I hear 18 years together, that I immediately go, that's what pops into my head, and millions of others.
That's correct. It was a 22-game winning streak Villanova owned over DePaul that finally got snapped. January 3rd of 2008 was the last time the Blue Demons got it done. So credit to them. We somehow made the flawless back and forth from Michigan State in the Big Ten to DePaul Blue Demons basketball.
Well, I do think I can circle this back to Michigan State. So we devolve perhaps into a conversation about these big programs struggling. Guess who's not really? Michigan State. They are about what we thought they were going to be, and they are on track to make the NCAA tournament for the 25th consecutive year. I hope.
Oh, man. That's just amazing. And Kansas is even longer, but 25 straight years. Yeah. Are you about to say, I hope MSU fans realize how good they have it right now?
Yeah, just don't ever take that for granted. I mean, like, Duke just missed the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. Kentucky probably, or at least possibly, about to miss it for the second time in a 3-year span. Basically, the only things you can rely on over decades is Tom Izzo, whoever's coaching Kansas, and Gonzaga.
Yeah.
That's it. Right now, Kansas on track to make it for the 33rd straight season, which is incredible. But Kansas is one of the best programs in the sport and have literally been coached by nothing but Naismith Memorial Hall of Famers. It's with Larry Brown, Roy Williams, Bill Self, and here we are. It's outrageous the way that program has been operating. And then Gonzaga is about to make it for the 24th straight season, and they're coached by a future Naismith Memorial Hall of Famer. And that's it. Everybody else has these bad years sometimes, but not Michigan State. And I don't mean to life ain't always going to be like that. So enjoy it while it is.
I agree.
By the way,
Let's-
you could apply that advice to anybody in any walk of life.
There you go. I agree. Let's do a tour of Tuesday night. It was busy. You were in studio for CBS Sports Network. Let me tee you up here. Couple quick scores. Virginia beats North Carolina 65-58. It's the 8th straight win at home for Virginia against UNC. UNC is now enduring its longest road winning streak against a single opponent in the history of its program. Kansas State got a good push from Oklahoma State, won 65-57 to move to 15-1. Auburn, I said on HQ earlier in the day, I actually wanted to see Auburn kind of go in and just have a no-nonsense win, and it got it. Not exactly headline making. Don't know if we need to talk too much about that, but at least they didn't blow it against an inferior team there. Illinois walked into Pinnacle Bank. Iowa State destroyed Texas Tech, which similar to Villanova is not going to the tournament this year. Florida actually got an important win on the road. Don't know if Florida's going to build up an NCAA tournament resume or not, but LSU started hot this season and now has kind of stumbled as of late. And I thought that was a key win for the Gators on the road there. You had on CBS Sports Network, San Diego State taking care of Nevada late. GP was in studio to watch that. And then Kansas winning the way it did against Oklahoma, winning by 4, down by 7-8 points as the second half really closed out, but didn't seem to matter. How many times have we seen it where there's a team threatening in that building, and lo and behold, the team threatening is not walking out with the win? In Oklahoma, by the way, and I will send it back right over to here. It's 10-6, and Oklahoma has dealt with a 1-point loss to Sam Houston State, a 4-point loss at Villanova, played Arkansas competitively on a neutral court, lost by 1 at home to Texas, lost by 3 at home to Iowa State, lost by 4 in a game it probably should have won against Kansas. Oklahoma is still top 30 at KenPom. It didn't make the tournament last year. I believe, if memory serves right, I believe Oklahoma was the top-rated team in predictive metrics to not get into the NCAAs, and here we are again. Porter Moser's doing a pretty good job. These are you got to try and steal these wins, though. The losses are just piling up and piling up. This team doesn't have a win over an NCAA tournament team. It needed that desperately there for Kansas to come back, get the win the way it did. I wasn't surprised, but I tell you, GP, I was about ready to believe that they were going to pull that off, and Kansas was going to take its second L of the season, but it did not happen. Whether that game or any other, what was the biggest result, or at least most notable, that you want to talk about from Tuesday night?
Well, Iowa State just smashing Texas Tech, I thought was notable, and because Texas Tech, they beat nobody.
They're done. Yeah, they're done. Yeah, they're not going to the tournament. GP. I have zero belief this team can turn it around and get enough wins in league play to get in that large bit.
They don't have a quad 1 win. They don't have a quad 2 win. They haven't beaten a top 140 KenPom team. Like, something's not right there. That seems pretty clear. So that was notable. Kansas State, after having an amazing week, comes back home. And they had to fight to get out of that, and they did it. And Jerome Tang has got that thing really operating at a high level right now. The Octagon of Doom looked terrific, and so those were all notable. Those were 2 notable results in the Big 12. And
can I ask you something about Kansas State? Because I think I'm going to have this in a capsule of my power rankings on Thursday. Would you buy the argument right now that Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson are both All-Americans, meaning they're 2 of the 15 best, most important players in the country right now? Because when you really look at what Kansas State at 15-1, what it's been able to do, and it's got, in so many ways, this is such a great story. We've talked about Tang on a couple recent pods. We've talked about Kansas State, but I just want to focus in specifically on these 2 guys. They're the only guys that shoot well from 3. Both are at about 40% overall. They're combining to score better than 36 a night. Keontae Johnson is liable to get you double. He's the most improved player in the country, or the comeback player of the year, right? If you want to include it like that, he can potentially get you a double, averaging close to 8 rebounds, and is dishing plenty of assists per game. Marquise Noel, from an assist rate standpoint, is second in the country. So it dawned on me last night. I don't know if you've even thought about this, but I think you really can make the case. I don't know if either of them is at a first-team All-American level right now, but I'd buy Keontae second team, Marquise Noel third-team All-American as we approach the halfway point. Would you buy that too?
Or flip it?
You could flip it.
Yeah,
you could flip it. Yeah.
But yes, my answer is yes. I think you can argue right now the best duo in college basketball.
said
like,
that on HQ this morning.
okay.
They really have become the best 1-2, which is just something no one could have possibly seen coming.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this stuff is all fluid. Like, we may look up on February 11th and look and go, hey, Kansas State lost 4 or 5, and Keontae Johnson's not shooting it well anymore, and who knows? But comeback player of the year, forget about it. Like, we were operating under the impression at one point in time he'll never play college basketball again. May never play basketball again, period. And now he looks like he could win Big 12 Player of the Year. Jalen Wilson will have something to say about that. His teammate Marquise Noel will have something to say about that. But it is a phenomenal story what's happening at Kansas State right now. I could make the case the best story in college basketball. So what happened there? Great. What happened at Iowa State? Great. Both those schools keep pace with Kansas atop the Big 12 standings. And what happened at Kansas was surprising on one hand, but also, like, what are you surprised about Kansas overcoming a deficit to win inside Allen Fieldhouse? They've been down in their past 2 home games, double digits in the second half. 15 points to Oklahoma State, 10 points to Oklahoma. And with Oklahoma, they were down like 10 with less than 6 to play. And they closed on an 18-4 run to win the game.
That's what it was. Yeah, man.
18-4 run to win the game. I mean, imagine you're Porter Mose. You're like, we had these guys beat for 35 minutes in their own building. Like, really controlled them for 35 minutes. And I don't know if you saw the quote from Jalen Wilson. He was like, yeah, we always know we're going to win these games.
Oh,
But like, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't keep pushing it, but
he's not wrong.
but he's not wrong. And at this point, he's not wrong. And now Bill Self is 301-16 all time at Allen Fieldhouse. He has as many Big 12 regular season titles as he does losses in Allen Fieldhouse in his career. 301.
Say that again, so people listening that might have been blanking out. Say that again, so people can really catch that stat, please.
Bill Self's record inside Allen Fieldhouse as KU's coach is 301-16. He has 16 losses his entire career at Kansas at home, and he has 16 Big 12 regular season championships. This dude is just as likely to win a conference championship in the toughest conference in America as he is to just lose a random game or any game inside his home arena.
That, I don't know what else I'd put on such a list of my top 5 to 10 most outrageous stats in all of American sports. That is on it. That is almost incomprehensible what you just said.
And then you look at you look at this. Kansas, obvious national championship contender after winning it last season. And the team's basically new. Stewan Harris and Jalen Wilson and either new players or a bunch of guys they didn't really rely on last season, like KJ Adams. Go look at KJ Adams' game logs from last season. It's just nothing. And he just scores 22 last night. I mean, this is that Kansas program, man. Like, Bill does it. He does it better than anybody else at this point. I'm not saying nobody's ever done it as well, although I could put an argument together, but you look at, he has not done, he's gotten 5-star guys, obviously, but his championships is just not just overwhelming 5-star talent. And, when Billy Donovan won back-to-back titles at Florida, it was the same team for the most part, same starting lineup for 2 straight years. You win it all. It'd be like if Bill Self won it all with Christian Brown and Ochai Agbaji and David McCormack, and then everybody came back and then they won it all again. That's amazing. But this is more amazing. You lose 4 of your top 5 scorers from a title team, and the next year you look like a title team again. So those 3 things that happened in the Big 12 Tuesday night were all notable for obvious reasons. And it looks like that Big 12 race is going to be a lot of fun, unless Kansas, of course, just pulls away with it.
Yeah, a couple things. One, what we talked about on the Sunday pod is in the Wednesday edition of the Court Report. I did note the 5 preseason picks of the 6 big leagues to win the league. They're all slumping majorly. So that is detailed. Big assist there from GP. So thanks for that nugget. That's included with all of that. 2, CBS Sports college basketball Twitter account posted a poll when Georgia, did Georgia? I picked Georgia to cover the spread. Did that happen? Did Georgia cover that spread? Nada. That was
yes, they did.
Oh my God!
Can I get a top Final 4-1 record refreshed? By the way, you got that handy, Nada?
You're 1 game up on GP now.
Okay. Yeah,
That was of all the days I've spent as a horn frog, that was the
you're
worst.
done. The
I
horn
can't
frog
say-
is extinct. I think he
I
killed
ca-
that too.
I can't say I'm done, but I can't say that was not a good night to be a horn frog.
Yeah,
I've had
no.
better nights as a horn frog. I didn't even watch the second half.
Yeah, I was
was like-
mostly tuned out, but then I did randomly look up. It was one of those things where I was like just doing other stuff and whatever, but I did look up and I double taked and I was like, is that Chris Ogden in the box of Bob Iger, who's like one of the most powerful people in all of media? So I sent out the video and it was indeed him. I
Which
talked-
surprises me in no way whatsoever that Chris Ogden would be in that situation. Like I'm not gonna start telling stories on the podcast without permission. But Augie's got some great stories with
He
some
does.
great people.
He does, and he happened to be he knows the Iger family and was also in that area to recruit. Anyway, the point is this: Georgia wins back-to-back national titles in college football. Kansas right now, arguably the best team in college basketball. So the polls put out, how likely do you think it is that Kansas can match what Georgia has done this year? So the four options were: there's a good chance, somewhat likely, it's a real long shot, or zero chance. It's a real long shot, one with 37% of the vote. Somewhat likely also came in with 31.3% of the vote. Let us answer this question before I wanted to hit on UNC Virginia real quick too. But to wrap up the Kansas stuff, good chance they repeat, somewhat likely they repeat. It's a real long shot they repeat, zero chance they repeat. I would say it is somewhat likely. I can't say there's a good chance. Somewhat likely is even, somewhat likely to me even equates to like 20 to 25%, which is that's actually crazy high for any team to go into a tournament with that good. But I would say somewhat likely given how good they've been and the coach they have there and all that. Of those four, good chance, somewhat likely, real long shot, zero chance. What do you say, GP?
Well, I think we got to agree on a definition first, because to me, something is either likely or it's unlikely. All right. And
It's unlikely. If you make me pick one or the other, it's unlikely.
Right. Because like somewhat likely to me still means like it's likely to happen. Or maybe it's to your point, like it is not likely for anybody to win this national championship. All right. It's not likely for Houston. It's not likely that Purdue's going to win it. It's not likely that Houston's going to win it. It's not likely that Kansas is going to win it or UConn or anybody else. So take the field. So by definition, it is unlikely that Kansas will win back-to-back national titles, but Kansas has more or less as good a chance as just about anybody to win the national title. It's just not a good chance because nobody has a good chance. That's the nature of a 68-team single elimination tournament, if that makes sense.
It does. It does.
That football game got so wild. I was like going to try to make a night of it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to get out of my hotel and I go sit in a bar around other humans and settle in and watch this game. And I sat there, and at halftime I said, all right, I've had enough of this. This is no day to be a Horned Frog. And so I came back to my hotel and I streamed the Grizzlies, of course, but also Five Guys a week. I watched 5 Guys a week. It's a Lifetime dating show.
Okay.
How about this? Our makeup artist, Vanetta, the legend Vanetta, she was the woman in the 20th episode of 5 Guys a Week. She they invite 5 guys into her home, and then she has to eliminate one of them every night until she's down to one. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to watch Vanetta tonight. I promised her I would. I just found out about this last week. I promised her I'd watch it before I came back. And so I said, you know what? Instead of watching this is how bad the football game went. I went from the football game to the Lifetime app. I think she picked the right guy.
All right.
She picked the guy I would have picked if I were picking guys on a dating show. And I might someday.
Sounds like a wild, wild Monday night.
It was
Memorable.
It was memorable.
You got into it. You pulled up the Lifetime app on your iPad.
Well, that's an indictment of college football.
It is. And it's, at least that game. At least that game. Georgia was able to win back-to-back titles. Don't expect Kansas to do it, but would be on the short list of the 3 or 4 most likely teams. Real quick, one other one from Tuesday night. Virginia, as I mentioned a little bit back, it beats North Carolina. 65-58. Now, Armando Bacot went out with an ankle injury in like the first 2 minutes of this game, did not return. So Carolina wasn't at full strength. Actually gave it a pretty competitive go of it. Virginia just wound up squeezing it out, as it does so often in that building. But two things. One, things should, and I know we opened this pod talking about Kentucky and what should happen, so keep that in mind. Things should turn for the better for UNC here. It's 11-6, unranked, 3-3 in the ACC. Things haven't gone well. Has one win over an NCAA tournament team to this point, and that's against Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic with the crazy shot to send it to overtime. In some ways, you could even say they might have gotten a little lucky in getting the win. Whatever. They have the win, but that's the only one of real note. Although I will note they beat Charleston, and that's literally Charleston's only loss, and there's a awesome mid-major Charleston UNCW game happening on Wednesday night. We'll preview the slate in just a second. But they play at Louisville, Carolina does, home to BC, home to NC State, at lowly Syracuse, home to Pitt. And obviously Carolina lost to Pitt to close out 2022. There is a chance that UNC could go from 11-6 to call it 14, 15-7 and kind of turn around. They play at Duke on February 4th. So just keep that in mind. But here's what I want to ask you. And a lot of people coping, a lot of people in their feelings. When I tweeted last night, Tony Bennett's going to have the best team in the ACC again. A lot of folks not comfortable with that statement whatsoever, in part because they did win at home somewhat narrowly against a shorthanded North Carolina team. It doesn't feel like an outrageous statement, but I had folks in the mentions, man. They were not. They some think this is straight up outlandish. I thought it was actually a fairly benign thing. I almost didn't tweet it. Clemson's still undefeated. But when you look around the ACC, Duke, Carolina, Clemson, Miami, I've put Miami as potentially a team that could be the best, maybe, right? But I don't know. It kind of seems like it's gonna be Virginia. But if you want to refute me, I'm here to hear the counter argument. But I was surprised by the pushback I received from you.
In this moment, I have Miami ranked 15th in the top 25 and 1, and Virginia ranked 16th in the top 25 and 1. The only other ACC school I have is Duke down at 24. So I guess if I wanted to argue with you, I could argue in favor of Miami, but it's not the type of thing I'd want to argue about. I think you could make a reasonable case right now that it'll be Miami or Virginia, or maybe Duke, that freshman talent pops and they, it's not crazy to imagine Duke winning the ACC title, but there's nothing outlandish or even slightly controversial about saying Tony Bennett's has the best team in the ACC, or will have the best team in the ACC, or will be an ACC winner. Maybe this isn't like Tony's best team, and it certainly isn't. Doesn't look like that to me. But that doesn't mean it won't be good. It's not a good enough team to win the ACC. I don't think you got to be a great team to win the ACC this season.
I agree. Is the ACC 6th in conference strength right now? I think it is. Let me check that real quick. I think it's 6th. It is, man. The ACC. You grew up on the Metro.
Yep. Raised on
I
it.
grew up on the Old Big East in the ACC. The idea that this team is 6th best in this league is 6th best, and it's like comfortably 6th best. It's not going to catch the Pac-12. Something we'll probably circle back to later this season. Yeah, I actually really like Miami's potential, and I mentioned about 3 weeks ago that Miami could arguably be considered the favorite in the ACC, and that's when you said, hey, hold on here. You're really going to put them ahead of Virginia? I said, no, fair point, valid point. And the metrics-wise, there's a 30-spot difference between both those two right now in predictive metrics. So just keep that in mind. I would love to see Carolina get its act together, Duke to frankly be a bit more interesting and dominant than it's been, because I want to see what they can do. I don't care if Duke finishes 1st or 9th. They're going to be interesting either way. But Duke finishing 5th in John Shire's first year just isn't that all that interesting in the ACC. I like plot twists, so I'm certainly up for that. But to me, even though Virginia's already lost 2 games in the league, so right now in the standings, Clemson 5-0, Miami and Pitt. Hello, Pitt. What is Pitt? Both 4-1. I get that they're behind right now, but from an objective metric standpoint, Virginia still rates comfortably as the best team in the conference. You got the schedule in front of you for Wednesday, Parrish, because it like Tuesday was good. We got a slate, hump day slate. You check this thing out.
Of course, I've checked it out.
I actually will not have enough screens for 7 o'clock. There's too many games. I won't have enough screens to pull this off.
I got enough screens.
I know you do.
I got so many screens. Wednesday night is loaded. We get Alabama at Arkansas, Creighton at Xavier,
Also 7.
Charleston at UNC Wilmington,
Give it 7.
Pitt at Duke,
What time is the Pitt game?
Missouri
It's
at
7 o'clock. Yep. That's
Missouri at Texas A&M, TCU at Texas, and on CBS Sports Network, UConn at Marquette in what is arguably the game of the night.
UConn Marquette is the game of the night. So just as a reminder, if you're listening here prepping, here are the 7 o'clock games. UConn Marquette, the best one. CBS Sports Network, Paris in studio. You have an Inside College Basketball at 6:30 or no?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We
Get to
do.
a TV at 6:30. Inside College Basketball. Who's going to join you in studio? I'm going to guess this is Wednesday. Feels like a Zook night.
I think it's Adam Zucker. I know it's Renee Montgomery, and I believe it's Roy Hibbert.
That is a crew. Renee
Dude,
Montgomery is
I-
tremendous.
Dude, I covered Roy Hibbert in the Final Four, and now I sit with him. And, like, you know what? Genuinely the nicest guy in the world. Couldn't find a more pleasant guy.
Might
that
need a photo. Might need a side-by-side.
Of me and
photo.
Roy?
Yeah.
It's like it's we've been this one of the things we've been lucky about at CBS Sports, with very few exceptions. The former NBA All-Stars and college stars we brought in have all just been awesome people. Like, they really fit in well from the start, and Roy is right there at the top of that. Like, you couldn't meet just a nice dude, just a really, really sweetheart of a person. I love working with him already.
That's wonderful. I'm going to reset this 7 o'clock slate for you again, because there was even a few more games GP didn't mention because it just doesn't have ranked teams. So UConn Marquette, that's the main screen. CBS Sports Network, 7 o'clock. Be there. Alabama, Arkansas, 7 o'clock, ESPN2. Creighton, Xavier. Creighton just trying to salvage an at-large resume and needs a win at Xavier. That's 7 o'clock, Fox Sports 1. Baylor at West Virginia. Baylor has not won a Big 12 game yet. It's on the road against West Virginia. This is a Big 12 ESPN Plus deal. That's a streamer game. Indiana, which is, did you see the thing? The Facebook post and then the players in the comments. You saw that? They're going after the Indiana fans.
No.
Like 5 players commenting on this thing.
I haven't seen it, but I love it. Tell me more.
Let me bring it up here. Hold on. I'm going to bring it up.
I just assumed the internet was still out in Indiana.
It's not. That's the whole point.
That's weird. I wonder how these young people got access to the internet. They must.
It's not out. That's the point. So
I wonder if they're probably using their personal hotspots or something.
Okay, so the Barstool Indiana Instagram account, I guess this is, just there's like a meme where it's a triangle with a team logo in the middle. It says, "I get my hopes up, I get disappointed, I start to believe again, I get my hopes up." So it's just the cycle of hell for a fan. So the caption on it says, "Make it make sense. This season sucks." That's the account that posted this. Xavier Johnson comments, "Here y'all go. It's middle finger y'all again then too," with the heart hand emoji. Miller Kopp, bunch of pencil neck clowns on this app. Look us in the eyes and you'd be quiet as can be. I guarantee that. We got more. Race Thompson with just a flat face, no smile emoji whatsoever. And then Anthony Leal just says, "Keep that same energy." It's not a good scene at Indiana right now. They gotta go play a good Penn State team. This is another 7 o'clock Big Ten Network game at Penn State. Penn State is favored to win. IU, yet another preseason pick to finish atop its league that has failed to live up to expectations. That's a 7 o'clock game. Memphis plays at UCF, ESPN Plus, 7 o'clock game. That's 2 top 40 teams. That's a sneaky one to keep an eye on.
If the AAC is going to be a 2-bid league, the second of those two is probably going to be one of these teams, Memphis or UCF.
Bingo, exactly. So that's another one to keep an eye on. Virginia Tech plays at Syracuse, which isn't really all that appealing other than that Virginia Tech's lost 4 in a row, and at one point it was an 11-1 team, and now it's at large case is just evaporating. Kind of needs to win that one on the road. Pittsburgh plays at Duke. Keep an eye on that. Charleston at Wilmington. Both these teams have combined to win 28 straight games. This is such an awesome mid-major game, the CAA highlight game. Charleston's going to try and push to be a 2 or 3 loss team by the end of the season. If it beats Wilmington on the road, then we can have a serious conversation if Pat Kelsey, 1, is on the short list, which he should be, especially with the win here for National Coach of the Year, and 2, if Charleston can actually build itself a viable at-large resume. So that's really the 7 o'clock slate of most note there. Just good stuff kind of across the board. And then GP mentioned the other stuff. I'll also say on CBS Sports Network at 9 o'clock, Western Kentucky plays at UAB. UAB is, a team in Conference USA that was projected to win the league. Florida Atlantic plays tonight. It's 14-1. Probably should be ranked.
I've got Florida Atlantic ranked.
Hell yeah. Good on you. Because I wrote in today's court report, if FAU wins at FIU tonight, I'm putting them in the power rankings. They're going to absolutely deserve it at this point. CUSA, between Florida Atlantic, North Texas, and UAB, it's got a really strong top, and CUSA is a top 10 league. So, listen, college football is now behind us. We got a few days before the NFL playoffs really get rolling here. And we have this is just a slammed Wednesday night. So in addition to, if you love the pod, we of course love you for that, but do check out GP on CBS Sports Network. He'll be in studio all night. I would imagine if things get noisy enough, I might be on HQ later tonight or tomorrow morning. And then Thursday, you've got Gonzaga at BYU. Just intriguing enough to get my attention. Zag should win, but BYU, that's a spot it's got to have there. Michigan plays at Iowa, 7 o'clock on Thursday. Arizona State plays at Oregon. How good is the Pac-12 going to be at the top? Keep an eye on that. And then Utah, I bring this one up last because Parrish will have no ability to watch it. I intend on watching it. 11 o'clock, Pac-12 Network.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Utah, which I think Utah was in Palm's bracket that got released this week. We get into mid-January. There's always just a couple of teams where you're like, I didn't even realize they were tournament worthy. 12-5 Utah, just lost at home to Oregon. If it wants to maintain that large profile in the moment, it's got to do the borderline impossible. Walk into Pauley Pavilion and go take out Mick Cronin and his Bruins 14-2. Haven't lost since before Thanksgiving. I wouldn't expect that, but it is an intriguing Pac-12 Network game Thursday night at 11 Eastern. So Thursday's just okay. I cannot wait for this Wednesday night slate to start. There's going to be no shortage of takeaways, I'm sure, from us when we get going on the Friday show.
Have fun watching that game on your fridge.
I will. I saw the photo, by the way.
I told you that was real.
I saw the Ion College Basketball podcast Twitter account, which if you're not following already, please do so. Retweeted the photo. That is just what an image. How much a fridge like that cost running, by the way? You get Pac-12 Network. Come on, man. That's got to be like a $7,000 refrigerator.
Well, maybe that's my next move. I mean, we've got a relatively new fridge, but
you've got 3 fridges. Did you or did you not order a fridge? It didn't come. You ordered another one, then they gave you another one for free, and then you didn't send it back.
That's the true story.
Yes.
Except like there's one other step. They delivered one. It was messed up, so we sent it back. They've delivered another one. It was fine. We're good. Then they delivered another one. I called them and said, hey, you guys already brought me one of these. You should come pick this one back up. They came and picked it back up and then came and brought me another one. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? This isn't on me anymore. I'm not gonna keep calling you to tell you to come pick up your refrigerator.
You can't be stealing if they bring it to you.
They did it twice. I tried to give it back the first time, then they brought me another one. I'm like, I'm not calling and waiting on the hold at wherever it was, Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever it was. So yes, but my wife did at some point over the past year. She got rid of one of the fridges we had one in our kitchen, one upstairs, and 2 in the garage. And she got rid of one of the ones in the garage.
Wow, you're down to 3. I didn't realize. Yeah. I didn't realize you've been roughing it like this.
It's been a hard year. It's been a hard year. We're down to 3.
That's my mistake.
We're down to 3 fridges. But would you rather have 3 fridges or one that gets you Pac-12 Network?
Oh man,
this is something we're gonna have to talk about when I get home.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like you sit down. It's like when you're planning a family vacation. Like we need a solid couple hours here. We got to plan this out. That's serious business there. Yeah.
All right, sure. Sweet Pea. I know we have new fridges and nice fridges, but I've been struggling with this Pac-12 Network thing for years. I've now come to learn that you can watch Pac-12 Network on a fridge. You get the right kind of fridge. So maybe we should invest in a new fridge with the Pac-12 Network. And then I would just late at night, I just sit in my kitchen floor, watch Pac-12 basketball. I just sit in my kitchen floor and watch.
You're sitting
Utah.
crisscross applesauce right there in the kitchen.
Yes.
Neck tilted up like my son watching one of his cartoons in the morning. Just
Yeah, I'm just
enraptured
just locked in on a Utah-Washington State game.
Before we get out of here, if you're watching live, people are like, this can't be. Nada, I'm dropping this in the private chat. See if you can put this on the screen before we bounce out of here, because this is just this photo that the Twitter account tweeted out was just crazy. Quite the deal there overall. I think that's pretty much all I got here before we get out. Nada's going to bring.
Did you mention Stanford at Washington? That's the hot seat game of the night. Hot seat game of the night on Thursday.
That is a good call. That is
Stanford at Washington. So,
yeah. There it is. If you're watching on YouTube,
hey,
this is a refrigerator. This is
hey,
what we
YouTube.
got here? Washington State. I don't even know who the opponent is. Look at this.
It looks like a nice fridge.
It does. What a look. What a look. Also, I want to send genuine condolences. I saw this early in the chat. You were talking about, look at that. Look at the size of that screen.
It's a nice screen.
Amazing. Looks like well, here we go. Samsung. There it is. I want to send condolences to Eric in the chat. You were talking about Calipari, and you ever know a couple that they just can't seem to call it off. Eric, better days ahead. He broke the news in the chat. He recently ended it with his fiance, or maybe she ended it with him. But that's not an easy thing. So thank you for occupying some of your time, Eric, in the Eye on College Basketball YouTube chat stream. We appreciate you. And you know what? You're going to be all right.
You'll be all right. It might not feel like it every day, but eventually you'll be. My experience with friends who have gone through similar things is that they always
broke
feel
up like 3 engagements. You've been all right.
I was never engaged until I was engaged to my wife.
And you got engaged at like 17, by the way. So
that's not true. None of that's true. I never got engaged. I did have a lengthy. She wasn't lengthy. She was like a little shorter than me. I had an extended relationship with my like high school, college girlfriend, but we were never engaged. Then she left me for another guy named Gary.
you share that on the pod.
There's
Gary's out there, and she found another one. Was like, I gotta upgrade my Gary's.
What are the like? Really? She upgraded. I think she probably did upgrade if we're telling the truth. But he's a quiet fella. We actually grew up together, and he's a quiet. I think she just went. I never talked to her about it, but I think she said, you know what? I still want to be with a Gary, but one that just doesn't talk as much. And so she found them. They're still together.
One that doesn't go back and listen to the podcast and just says, just shut up already.
She found them. There's a common thread with my ex-girlfriends. The ones like we break up and they married the guy immediately after me. Like I have multiple ex-girlfriends who married the guy immediately after me. So what does that say?
I think it's time.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck, Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. 5 stars. Leave a nice review. There's more of us than there are of them. She's one of us.
There we go. Okay, get out of here.
That needs to be reflected in the comments. We're going to talk to you again on Friday. Till then, take care.